guys. Welcome to the second season of the Advanced Practice Perspectives. I'm Trisha Williams.
And I'm Toby O'Brien. This is a podcast created by advanced practice providers for advanced practice providers. Our goal is to provide you with education and inspiration. We will be chatting with pediatric experts on timely key topics and giving you an inside look at the various advanced practice role at Children's Mercy.
We are so glad that you're joining us today. So sit back, tune in, and let's get started. Today, we are pleased to have Jason Moburg on the podcast. Jason is a family nurse practitioner in the emergency department at Children's Mercy Hospital. We are so happy that you're here today with us, Jason. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been a nurse for 22 years now. Went back to get my doctorate about 7 years ago at the UMKC just across the street from Children's Mercy, and then took a job in the emergency department almost 3 years ago.
Awesome. So what were your years of experience in nursing? Where were you mostly during those times?
I had about 15 years of ICU experience. A friend of mine one day just asked me, have you ever thought about working with kids? And I really had never thought about that in the past, but my wife and I do have 4 children, and I love being around kids and activities with kids. And so I talked to my cousin, who actually works at Children's Mercy also, and I got a job in the PICU before I went back to school to get my doctorate.
Great, Jason. Well, tell me what spurred you on to get your DNP.
Well, I was in management for quite a while, about 5 years. Enjoyed that piece of things, liked more about the learning about administration of the hospital, budgets, FTEs, all the ins and outs of running a hospital. But I really missed being at the bedside, being with the patients, and I spoke to my wife, and we talked about it for almost a year before I decided to go back to school. And I've always wanted to do advanced practice, and at first I wanted to do possibly PICU, where I was already located, but as I got deeper in my program, I realized I really wanted to do more preventative medicine rather than more heroic type measures like in the PICU. I kind of like the one-on-one meeting parents initially when a child's injured.
I read in your bio that you have a huge interest in weight management. Is that correct? And preventative health in that aspect?
That was the focus of my thesis in school, was talking about actually teenage females and their self-esteem when it comes to their weight. I worked with several providers on the Children's Mercy campus, and I just basically walked through about a year of these kids starting the program, meeting other children, and then participating in the activities, and watched their self-esteem increase, even with not so much weight loss, but just people there to help them to speak through the difficulties of being overweight as a child, and it was a pretty rewarding experience.
That sounds very rewarding. So it leads to my curiosity about you working in the emergency department and how you connect the dots with your need for preventative medicine and fulfilling that professional growth to working in the emergency department when they come in with an illness or an injury.
Yeah, it actually started when I was in the PICU. I'm not sure if you're familiar too much with the PICU, but there's a lot of just super sick kids there.
It's my old stomping grounds.
Yeah.
It's my old, yeah.
Yeah. So, sometimes into life situations, things like that. And I had 2 children back to back. One was a 10-year-old female who tried to commit suicide and tried to hang herself. And I took care of the family and the child for about 3 weeks before she finally passed away. 2 weeks later, the nurse manager and charge nurse asked me to be part of another family, a really sad story where a 4-year-old had not had his proper asthma medication and pretty much had a hypoxic event at home and was again end of life, and it was basically a organ donation situation. It just so happens during that time period, one of my kids is a 10-year-old girl and one of my boys is a 4-year-old male. So it really kind of set things in motion for me to realize that maybe a higher power was telling me I shouldn't be in the PICU. I should be someplace where I could help kids before they get to that point. And that, to me, was the emergency department.
Those are really hard stories, and especially when you have kids that age, and it really gets to you and can make a pretty big impact on your life. So it sounds like being in the emergency department, you are going to interact with a lot of those sorts of families. Like, of course, you're asthmatics, and you have the opportunity to do lots of education, I'm guessing. So tell us what some of your favorite sort of encounters are in the ED.
It's fun working there because I get to do different ends of the spectrum, clear from, even like a motor vehicle crash down to someone who can't give Tylenol appropriately to their child, and I really take it's really rewarding to talk to families and give them some basic information about how to give Tylenol or ibuprofen correctly, or how to feed a baby, the appropriate amount of food and how to do that. It's just very basic things that some of the families that we service downtown don't have access to, proper medical care, primary care providers, those kind of things. And they do turn to us to help with some of that.
I've never thought of the emergency department in that way. I guess I looked at it as the motor vehicle crashes and the patients that come in that are acutely ill. Not that you can help them from a primary care standpoint, but it sounds like you really, really can. So I find that interesting. I think about stitches and x-rays and, casting and things as well when I think about the emergency department. Are there any specific things that you like to do or, thrive on doing? Like when you get a procedure, it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I always like procedures. I like sutures. I like, kids are always putting things in interesting places in their ears, noses, mouths, things like that. So
this we know in the ENT.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I try to prevent them from going to see you guys to help get those out of there. And that's some kind of parents are always upset and, think it doesn't happen to anybody else, but there's always 2 or 3 a day you see like that, which are, the procedure part's always fun. And, some of my colleagues, they do LPs, they do, G-tube placements, and they do some pretty cool stuff down there. And, depending on your experience level and your comfort level, you can do and, get certified in all kinds of different procedures.
I find it fascinating the gamut in which advanced practice providers can really practice just based on different credentialing and things from all the way from doing, like you said, LPs to foreign body removals to, history and physicals. It's just like there's no limit really to what we can do as advanced practice providers. So I find that fascinating.
Yeah, no, and the best part is the environment I work in with, our emergency-trained physicians, the pediatricians that are work down there, other advanced practice nurses. I mean, we're part of one big team, and it's been very comforting as a new grad coming into an environment like that to have some of these docs take me aside and say, hey, let me show you how to do this, or think through this, or, use this resource, those kind of things. And it's only gotten better over the past 3 years with the pandemic, with changes at the hospital, things like that. It's just made our group even closer and more close-knit, and I think we provide better care because of it.
Absolutely. It sounds like it is really nice to have a team that you can work so closely with. I will echo that for sure. Well, Jason, as we head into the summer, we would love to pick your brain about some summer tips, summer emergency department type tips for our providers and maybe any families that are listening as well. But last year we had the opportunity to visit with Cassandra Newell, and she was great and gave us some good tips on some different things like sunscreen and bug spray. But I just was curious if, since you have 4 kids and you work in the ED, if there's any big sort of overarching themes that you always like to educate families on when you interact with them during their ED visit regarding summer safety.
Yeah, I asked some of my colleagues about this before our podcast today, and there were 3 major areas they talked about. One was helmet safety, second was playground injuries, and third was water safety. So those are the 3 big, I think, summer hot button things we see in the ER. And number 1, bicycle helmets. I'm not sure why bicycle helmets haven't really taken hold or taken off. I mean, none of us get in a car and don't buckle a seatbelt. It's become habit to do that with everything. But unfortunately, if I go through my neighborhood and see 10 kids on a bike, maybe 1 or 2 is wearing a helmet.
Oh, yeah, same here. It's like in my neighborhood, they know that I'm the healthcare provider of the neighborhood because no one else's kids are wearing helmets but mine.
Yeah.
That's what my kids
you're not
do.
the cool parent, believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm not sure why it hasn't, but it prevents so many simple injuries. And I always tell parents, if you're on a device that you can go as fast as you can run, you should probably be wearing a helmet. Rollerblades, razor scooters, anything like that.
That's really good advice. The water safety is a big one for me. Like swim lessons aren't an option in our family. You had to learn how to swim. It's safety, it's life-saving. So that's a big one in my household as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with our proximity to Lake of the Ozarks too, we have lake safety and also just residential pool safety. And I think, I'll just use my family as an example. My wife's a nurse also, and we took all 4 of our kids to the pool about, probably 10 years ago. And, you're carrying 5 bags and a cooler and everything else, and the kids are running to the pool, and all of a sudden our 3-year-old jumps in. Well, Cooper couldn't swim and had no life jacket on, and luckily Mom was sitting right there by the pool and pulled him out. But I mean, a lot of the public pools now, and even, residential pools, of course, family pools, don't have lifeguards. So you've almost got to talk before you go and say, okay, who's in charge of being a lifeguard first, mom or dad or older brother, whoever's going to be to watch the younger kids. So that's a pretty scary situation, and that's something that's, I think, again, easily preventable.
Right. And I think using each interaction with our families as an opportunity to kind of provide this insight is, we just can't do it enough. I think it's super important.
Definitely.
I agree. I think one of the things that with my PICU, I have a 10-year PICU experience as well, Jason, and I think about lawnmower safety and the traumas that I would have to go to because, Grandpa had, little Johnny on his knee on the riding lawnmower, and little Johnny fell off and Grandpa ran over Johnny's foot. And I see that in my neighborhood, and I just want to pull over and say, get off of the lawnmower.
And you also see the teenagers that are out there mowing the grass for mom or dad who are wearing flip-flops or bare feet, and it's just that drives me nuts as well, because that's so easy to trip and pull that mower over your foot.
I would agree. Closed-toed shoes on bicycles as well. I was a product of a 3-year-old. I was a 3-year-old child and was on the back of my sister's bike and did not have shoes on, and it was before they had the safeguards on the bicycle chains, and the bicycle chain wrapped around my big toe and took my toe almost completely off. So
Trisha,
closed-toed shoes on
awful.
bicycles. It was really gross. So closed-toed shoes. I think that there's so many little tips that we can get in for emergency safety, helmets, bicycles, water safety, lawnmowers, all of those things are excellent. What's the third one that you had mentioned, Jason? Sorry, I forgot that one.
Playground equipment.
Playground,
I think if any ER provider would tell you, if you could get rid of all the trampolines and monkey bars, it'd be a much safer world. It's just, we have so many injuries, trampolines flying off, people falling off monkey bars, that kind of stuff. It happens, all the time. So, you want your kids to be kids, but just be safe about it. Make sure you're watching them. And sometimes what helps the most is if a family can just tell us just the mechanism of an injury. If they bring them into the ER from a fall or something like that, we can better diagnose and make it better for the kiddo that comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If our monkey bars and trampolines went away, our orthopedic colleagues may lose a little job security, but that is definitely for sure. Definitely for sure. Both of my children broke bones on monkey bars and trampolines, and that's exactly the speech that I got from the provider in the ER, is that, we don't really support trampolines and monkey bars, but they are fun. So
they are, sir. They are fun. Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to visit with you and to hear about life in the ED and really what kind of led you down that path of getting your DNP. And we're so glad that you are an ED provider at Children's Mercy. So thank you so much for your time. We like to end each of our episodes asking you a question. We kind of ask everybody the same question. So this season, our question is, what is the most sensible or useful piece of advice you have heard lately?
Wow. Let's see. I would say just be present with your kids. Make sure you're there, make sure you're watching over them, make sure you're just, always being their advocate. And it's hard sometimes to be that parent. I think like Tricia said about making, you're the healthcare provider in the neighborhood, making them wear the helmet. It's for their good, so they should appreciate that. And, they won't at that time for sure. But I think if parents in the ER would tell you they much prefer to have them wear the helmet and get a little flack from the kids than not have it on.
Yeah, very, very wise advice. I love that because, one, be present with your kids, pay attention, be the parent, don't be their friend, be their parent, because you can't get some of that stuff back, so that's really good advice, Jason. Thank you again for joining us today. And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. If you have a topic that you would like to hear about, or you're interested in being a guest, you can email us at tdobrien@cmh.edu or twilliams@cmh.edu. Once again, thanks so much for listening to the Advanced Practice Perspectives.